Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I'm here today to do a Friday Reads video where I wrap up my week in reading and talk about any exciting bookish stuff that has happened during the week. If you are one of those people who is really just here to hear about the books that I read, that's fine. You can go to the timestamp that is in the description box down below and jump to the Friday Reads portion of this video. There will be a lot to discuss when we get there. I'm really excited to talk about the books that I read. I finished 2 books, both in print. I am 40% of the way into an audiobook, and I have already started reading my next print book. I think I'm about 52 pages into that, and there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. And if you want to jump to that, feel free to use that timestamp in the description box down below. Again, we have been in a bit of a summer lull with book news and any exciting book stuff. You know, as soon as the Women's Prize happened and we got through the first part of book prize season, things got quiet for the summer. You know, a lot of people are on vacation and taking time off and all of that. And things won't really start to pick up again until the end of this month when we get the Booker Prize long list, which then launches us into the second part of book prize season for the year. It feels like it used to only be book prize season in the fall, but now with the Women's Prize, the Carol Shields Prize, the International Booker, it feels like there are 2 different seasons for book prizes, and we're getting ready to head into the second one. So this is supposed to be a quiet month. The New York Times Book Review threw a bit of a wrench into that this week by announcing the 100 best books of the 21st century. They did fiction and nonfiction. I'm actually going to do a video just about the New York Times 100 best books of the 21st century so far. It means a lot to me that a bunch of people or a handful of people reached out to ask if I was going to be doing a video about it, or when I posted something on Instagram about their list so far, because they did a reveal. They did 20 books on Monday, 20 books on Tuesday, 20 books on Wednesday, 20 books on Thursday, and then you can guess 20 books on Friday to reveal the entire top 100. And as I posted about it, people kind of asked, oh, are you going to do a video? And if I did mention, they got excited about it. So thank you. That made me feel good. So yes, I'm hoping that I'll be able to film that video today. If I do, and if I'm able to edit it before the end of the day, hopefully you will have it by Monday. But stay tuned. I will be doing a video about the New York Times 100 best books of the 21st century. This is actually, they kind of stole my thunder, because last summer I did a video about the 25 best books of the last 25 years. Now, it's a little bit different because when I did it last year, I didn't consider anything from the 2023. So I think the eligibility period went all the way back to 1998. So there were 2 years that were outside of the 21st century. And I had actually been thinking that as soon as 2024 was over, I would do an updated version that was specifically the 25 best books of the 21st century so far. And New York Times stole my thunder. Oh well, it's fine. So I will probably be doing my own version of this early next year. Maybe I'll wait until summer again. But at some point in 2025, I'm going to be doing my own version of this as a sort of build off of my 25 best books of the last 25 years, which included 2 years of the 90s. I'll have a link to that video down below if you want to check it out. It is by far the most popular video I have ever done on this channel. It was a lot, which makes me feel good because a lot of work went into it. So if you want to check that video out, do so in the description box down below at the link that will be there. Otherwise, hopefully Monday, maybe Tuesday at the latest, I will have a video reacting to the New York Times' list about the books that were published in this century. And at some point next year, you'll get my list, my sort of updated list. I wanted to give a little more time. I didn't want to make this like an annual thing where I talk about the best books of the last 25 years, although I suppose I could because things do age out. Anyway, I'll think about that. And maybe if you want that to be an annual thing, let me know. I don't want to overdo a good thing. My thinking was just that once 2024 is over, I can do a video about the first 25 years of the 21st century, and that would be a fun way of doing it. So anyway, long way of saying I'll be having a video about that list, and I will link it down below if you want to check it out. They did it in a really interesting way. They reached out to a bunch of authors and people in the literary world and asked them to create a top 10 list of books published in the 21st century, fiction and nonfiction. And then they took those lists and compiled them into the master list. And some authors agreed to have their list made public. Stephen King got some shade for including one of his own books in his ballot, which is kind of funny and interesting. We'll get into all of that next week, but that is the big thing that happened in the book world this week. On some more personal news, I do want to quickly mention, I had talked recently about how there were only 4 books that I still needed in hardcover to complete my hardcover collection of Pulitzer Prize winning books, which you can't see because it's on a wall over there. And one of them was gifted to me for my birthday in June. That was Lonesome Dove. And I've been having a bad luck because the versions of the book that are available on, let's say, eBay tend to be really expensive. And I will watch, say, thrift books, but I have really found thrift books to be unreliable because a lot of the time you order something and then, you know, what comes is not necessarily what you ordered. So I've had instances where I ordered something and a library copy came, and it's supposed to tell you if you're ordering a library edition. And sometimes I've ordered a hardcover and a paperback came. Actually, that has happened to me a lot with thrift books. And I expressed this frustration with Charlie, who is one of the owners of Montana Book Company. They recommended that I use Alibris. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, because they said they use Alibris in the store once in a while for customers and have had good luck with it. So I looked, and after a couple of tries, I managed to find affordable versions of all 3 remaining hardcovers that I needed. And only one of them was actually a hardcover when it arrived. So I got Interpreter of Maladies in hardcover. I can cross this one off my list. So now there are only 2 hardcovers that I need to complete my hardcover Pulitzer Prize collection. And that is really exciting. So I have this beautiful hardcover copy of Interpreter of Maladies, one of my favorite Pulitzer Prize winners. I did a video about this one last year because I reread it, and I'll link that down below as well. But so that was an exciting find. It's really curious because the one that this has happened to me the most is actually the shipping news, where I order a hardcover and what arrives is a paperback. Now, the paperbacks that arrive are a little bit interesting because they have the exact same cover as the first edition of the shipping news when it came out in hardcover. And there's no barcode anywhere on the paperback, which made me think these are advanced readers copies. But I've looked online and they didn't do advanced readers copies of this book. They did a 4-chapter excerpt that was passed around to drum up interest in the book. There were not really advanced copies of this book. So why am I getting paperback copies that don't have a barcode? Seems odd. And when you go to the copyright page, it has an ISBN number on it. When I look that up, it comes up with hardcover editions of the book. So I guess this is me saying, hey, if anybody out there is a book collector, why does this keep happening to me that I keep ordering a hardcover of the shipping news and then this same paperback that has no barcode but is not an advanced reader's copy keeps showing up, and the ISBN actually matches the hardcover, which I'm sure is how this keeps happening to me. But so if anybody has an answer, please let me know, because this is very perplexing. So the shipping news is one of the 2 that I need at this point, and then the other one also arrived in paperback. That one is going to be a hard find because hardcovers of that book tend to be very expensive. So I don't know when I will manage to track down an affordable hardcover copy of that book. I don't know why I'm dancing around saying the name. It's Iron Reed by William Kennedy. So that is going to be a bit of a white whale. There are hardcover copies of the shipping news out there. They tend to be a little more expensive, but you know, I just have to keep having this weird problem that when an affordable copy shows up, I end up getting a paperback, and I don't know what that's about. So anyway, there isn't really much else to talk about. I will say, before we get to the actual Friday Reads portion of the video, just another apology. I have fallen behind on comments again, and I do think this is kind of the new state of things, because I get so many comments anymore across multiple videos, not just the new ones. And I do try to prioritize comments on the new videos, but so many comments come in on the other videos that there becomes like a flood, and I keep trying to catch up, and it's really difficult. So I'm doing my best, and I think I've reached the point where I kind of accept that this is kind of the way it's going to be, and I'm just going to keep trying to respond to as many comments as I can. But if I don't respond to you, I apologize. I have had a couple of instances where somebody said, I commented on another video and said this. I don't know if you saw it. I'm sorry. I'm trying. One thing that does make it difficult, and I haven't really wanted to say anything about it, but for the past month or so, there have been a lot of negative comments on the channel, and, you know, it's fine. It's part of having a presence on the internet. I don't expect sympathy or anything like that, but I do admit part of the problem with me responding to comments is that when I run into a rash of like 2 or 3 comments that are really kind of negative or designed to be insulting, it's easy to delete them or block the person if they're just trying to insult me and all of that stuff. But it does make me feel like I don't even want to do this right now. So I stop and then intend to get back to it. And by the time I have another flood of comments have come in, and it just enhances the sense of being backed up on comments. So, you know, bear with me. It's fine. Like I said, it's part of being on the internet. There was like a weird thing where during Pride Month, early Pride Month, I was getting comments across multiple videos from multiple different people, but all saying the same thing, pointing to that part of Leviticus that reference that you know, a lot of people point to as a sort of anti-gay measure. So that was not fun, but they've calmed down by now. The only thing I will say is that I have gotten a bunch of comments that they're all deleted, so don't go looking for them, because the tone of them was kind of offensive. And if you leave an offensive comment without any kind of substance on my channel, I just delete it. And that's kind of the way it is. About the fact that I've been reading a lot of cinnamon bun books. And you know what? We all deal with stress and anxiety in different ways. I have a lot of election stress. The world is basically on fire, and that's kind of what it is. And I don't feel like I need to explain this to people, but you know, here we go. That's how I'm kind of coping with stress. Like, yeah, I have read a lot of cinnamon bun books this year, like gay romances and things like that. And, you know, part of that is that that's my escape. Part of that is that that's the type of book my husband tends to like. And I enjoy being able to discuss books with him. And again, I don't really feel like I need to explain this, but I guess it's just these people won't be here right now, but it's just strange to me because it's like, if you don't like the books that I'm reading, you don't have to watch the video. Seems obvious, but that's my coping mechanism for this year. Sometimes I will read a very serious book, and then I need a little bit of, you know, that sort of cinnamon bun retreat, and then I'll be ready to go back to a serious book. That's just the way my reading has been lately. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. You don't have to watch any videos where I don't talk about books you're not interested in. You don't have to watch any of my videos if you don't want to. So that has been a bit of a barrier as well to responding to comments. So we're going to keep going. Like I said, it's fine. I kind of expect these things, and it has happened more frequently as my channel has gotten larger. You take the good with the bad. You have to take the bad with the good. And, you know, I'm working on developing a thicker skin so it doesn't bother me that much, but it does definitely slow down response to comments, and it's part of the idea of the whole backlog. But anyway, you might also notice that Teddy is not here. It is really hot where we live. We had a weird cold spring, and then the first part of summer was really cold as well. And then as soon as we got into July, the temperatures started to climb, and we are officially in a heat wave. It has been just under 100 degrees Fahrenheit in Montana, where I live, all week, and that has been a lot. So it's not so bad for us, although usually I would have the fan on in this room. I don't while I'm filming because it makes a lot of noise that can get really annoying. We're trying to manage Teddy. This is our first summer with him. We're getting to know. He has been sluggish this week because of the heat. Totally understand. But also, because it's been so hot, we can't really take him for walks the way we usually would. The good news is he really loves drives in the car, which is particularly good because if we ever took Guinness or Jamie, my previous dogs, for a ride in the car, they would just go to sleep. So it wasn't like they actually got any kind of activity. Teddy looks out the window. He loves to stand up in the front and sort of surf that little console We have it sort of set up so it's more like a ramp in my car, at least. So he's not like actually surfing. He's standing, but he loves to stand in that space between Joel and me if we're both in the car and watch the world around him. So we've been doing a lot of that. And Joel actually took him for a drive right before I started filming my Friday reads. So, and we tried to get out and walk him in the morning before it gets really hot. So, Teddy is on an adventure in an air-conditioned vehicle, and that's kind of the way things are right now. I can tell you for sure he definitely would not want to be sitting in my lap given how hot it is and given that the fan in this room is not on. So that's why I don't really feel bad not having him here. We'll figure out ways to get him back into videos, but he definitely would not have enjoyed being in a video right now. He's probably much happier in an air-conditioned vehicle with Joel. Let's get to the actual Friday Reads portion of the video. So I got interrupted by work, and now time has made a liar of me, so Teddy is actually going to make an appearance, but I'm going to put him down so he doesn't feel too hot sitting in my lap. I just figured since he was here, we would allow him to say hello as we get into the Friday Reads portion of the video. Yeah, as soon as I put him down, he ran out to lie on the cold floor in the hallway. So, as I said, I finished 2 books this week, both of them in print. I am 40% of the way through an audio that I am loving so far. And I have already started another book, and I'm 52 pages in. Really excited to talk about all of these books. Now, an interesting thing has been happening over the last 2 weeks, and I don't think this is going to be like an ongoing trend. I think it's just something that's happening right now. I have noticed over the last 2 weeks, I've really only been able to prioritize one book at a time. So last week, I had been reading Hombrecito by Santiago Jose Sanchez and A Dash of Salt and Pepper on audio. And I really didn't feel like I was able to split the time, so I had actually prioritized A Dash of Salt and Pepper by Kasoko Jackson, which I finished and talked about in my last Friday Reads. And incidentally, that is the book that really spurred a lot of these conversations and negative comments about how many cinnamon bun books I've been reading. And I just want to say, for the people who skipped to the Friday Reads portion of the video, if you think I've been reading too many cinnamon bun books, I apologize. It's the way I'm coping with the world and the news cycle right now. And just so you know, if you don't like or are not interested in the books that I'm reading, you don't have to watch those videos, and you don't really have to watch any of them. So it is what it is. But anyway, this week the opposite happened. I didn't listen to all that much of my audio, and I really focused on the physical book, and that was Hombrecito by Santiago Jose Sanchez. I think I had only managed to read about 40 pages of this book when we last spoke, and then I had spent all of my time that I had to read on A Dash of Salt and Pepper. Now, whenever I had time to read, I was picking up Hombrecito, and the amount of time that I spent on my audiobook suffered as a result. This had been one of my most anticipated books of the middle of 2024, and hoo boy, did it not disappoint. This is a really wonderful book, and I am going to summon the spirit of another book to talk about this, and that is Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart. So if you are a fan of Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart, I think you would like Hombrecito. There are differences aplenty. Obviously, this is about growing up and coming of age in Scotland in the 1980s and early 1990s, maybe. This is about someone who is born in Colombia, immigrates to Miami, and then goes to Yale and lives in New York City. So geographic differences, for sure. There are some tonal differences, but both books could be described as a bit on the bleak side, a bit on the sad side, a bit on the heavy side. And yet, both books are absolutely beautiful. There is a current of empathy, understanding. I would say there's probably a bit more hope, believe it or not, in Shuggie Bain, ultimately, and both have complicated parental relationships and dynamics. Shuggie Bain obviously focuses primarily on the mother, but there are complicated relationships with the father and the mother in Hombrecito. So I couldn't really get Shuggie Bain out of my head while I was reading Hombrecito, even though, again, there are some key differences in them. And I just think that if you liked Shuggie Bain, you should read Hombrecito. And if you didn't like Shaggy Bane, there are enough differences that you could still end up liking Hombrecito. Give this one a chance. I think it is tremendous and wonderful. I do kind of wish that I had finished it before Joel and I did our best books of 2024 so far, which will be linked in the description box down below if you haven't seen it yet, because I think this would have made I know this would have made my list. I do think I need to let a little bit of time pass before I see exactly where this book will fall in my list, because I feel like I'm on a high with it right now. I believe I finished it yesterday morning. So I'm filming this on Friday, July 12th. I think I finished it Thursday morning. I had only had 40 pages left when I got up yesterday morning, and I kind of powered through them at breakfast and then sat with the book and thought about it all day, and just, I love it. I think this is a tremendous new literary talent. I can't wait to see what Santiago Jose Sanchez does next. And this is their debut novel. There they are. And I do kind of wonder how much of this book is inspired by the author's life, because Santiago Jose Sanchez was born in Colombia, went to Yale, and the protagonist of this book is also named Santiago, immigrates from Colombia to the United States, and ultimately goes to Yale. It just makes you wonder when things like that happen. But this is such a beautiful story. By the way, it kind of ties back to Shaggy Bane again. But anyway, I cannot wait to see what they do next. So the story of this is that in the opening chapter, you have a young boy living in Colombia with his older brother who has a different father from him. And they're living with their mother. The mother and our protagonist, Santiago's father, break up, and she ends up moving the two sons to Miami. He had a very close relationship with his brother, but as soon as they get to Miami, anger boils up and builds, and there's sort of resentfulness builds in the brother, and things become very difficult. There has always been something difficult about his relationship with his mother, but things sort of intensify once they get to Miami, because they are no longer around their extended family. They're no longer around their friends. There's that language barrier and new customs that they don't necessarily understand. Santiago, as he gets older, starts to struggle with his own sexuality and with his own coming out process. And Santiago doesn't really know how to have healthy relationships with other people. So he struggles. He behaves in very self-destructive ways and gets older. And, there aren't easy fixes to this sort of situation or that sort of life when you have internalized all these bad lessons and all of these self-hatreds and things like that. It's not an easy fix. There's no light at the end of the tunnel necessarily, or nothing you can do that just magically fixes them. And this book really understands that, and it portrays it in very beautiful ways. I really loved this book a great deal. And I hope that more people will read it for themselves, and it will definitely be in my top 10 for 2024. He said confidently in July. Who knows? There's always a possibility that I will read, 10 great books that would push everything out of my top 10 that I did a week ago. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But I feel pretty confident that this will be in the top 10 now. The question is sort of where it will end up in my top 10 once I've had a little more time to process and sit with this book and, see how things go with that. But I really loved Hombrecito. And one of the nice things about this is that this book is out in the world now. It has been published, and I had gotten this copy from Riverhead, actually. I should mention that, because if I get something for free from a publisher, I really want to be upfront for that. I did. And it had nothing to do with me including this book on my most anticipated books of the middle of 2024. I didn't reach out to them. It just was a pure coincidence. So I posted that video, and then like a week later, I got an email from Riverhead asking if I wanted a copy of this book, and I was not going to say no. So they sent it, and thank you to the team at Riverhead for thinking of me for this book that I really genuinely loved. I'm not just saying that because they gave it to me. And that's why I want to be upfront that I got a copy of this book for free, because I really want you to know that I genuinely loved this book. It's not because I got it for free. But the total coincidence. So I had this book early, but I didn't actually get around to reading it until after it had been published. And a handful of people read this after it was published. and were really excited and telling me, I think you're going to love it. And that got me even more excited to read it, and it definitely lived up to the expectation. I loved Hombrecito by Santiago Jose Sanchez. I can't wait for more people to read it and talk about it, and, you know, I think it's going to be in my top 10 when we get to the end of the year. I'm that high on that book. So once I finished that yesterday morning, I decided, you know what, I have this from the library. I am just going to pick it up, and I know I'll be able to read it very quickly. It's Check Please, Book 1, Hockey by Ngozi Ukazu. This is obviously a graphic novel. It is a YA graphic novel. I got it from the library, but it is actually from a high school library, which is kind of interesting. I didn't realize high schools in Montana were part of the regular library system, or maybe not all of them are. I don't know how that works. So the one thing I would say is that this kind of has the feel of a book that grimy teenagers have had, and I don't mean that to be offensive, but it just feels dirty. Like, I'm not a germaphobe, but I don't like for my hands to be dirty. That's probably why I don't like gardening. So every time I've been holding this book, I feel like I need to wash my hands. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm really glad that this is in a high school library, because it is a gay graphic novel that is kind of uplifting and positive, and we need more of that. We need teenagers to have access to stories like that. So I'm really glad that it is there. So it follows Eric Biddle, whose nickname is Biddy. And he has been a junior figure skater, but he has now pivoted to hockey, which is this new obsession of his. He also obviously really loves to bake pies. So he goes to college, joins the team. This book spans his first 2 years of college. If you follow along, you know I have a sort of recurring complaint about most graphic novels or graphic memoirs, which is that there's a tendency to skim the surface of the story. I feel like a lot of authors of graphic novels or graphic memoirs are a little bit reluctant to spend a lot of time developing story beats or adding to the page count. And it's not so bad in a YA, but I do feel like this book definitely skims the surface. It moves so quickly through those first 2 years. This is only about 240 pages, but it moves so quickly through them that it never really feels, to me at least, like you get to know the characters all that well. Like you get to know the story. You don't really get to see all that much of the games that they play and things like that. Like you get all of the important beats to move the story ahead, but it doesn't feel resonant because you don't really understand how they got there or why they're feeling this way or what they've overcome and blah, 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 blah. So I'm glad that this exists. I'm glad that teenagers have access to it. I think this is probably a case where, you know, it doesn't translate as well to someone who's an adult picking this book up. It's not that universal, because I think if you're a kid, you might forgive the fact that it glosses over a lot of the things that happen and you don't really get to settle into the beats of the story. I kind of wanted those moments. So I'm glad I read it. I don't think I will read part 2. Part 2 covers the last 2 years of Biddy in college and how things go with his team. There is, of course, a bit of a romance at play as well with the captain of the team, whose name is Jack. And because of this book, by the way, I should mention, I am wearing my New York Rangers t-shirt today. Anyway, that explains the t-shirt and part of the interest in Check Please. So what am I listening to on audio that I sort of neglected in order to finish Hombrecito? It's Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Joel had just finished this book when we did our best books of 2024, and it jumped up pretty high on his list of the best books of 2024 so far. So I knew that I wanted to read it. The wait list on Libby for the audio of this is really long. The wait list at the library is really long. And Joel got on the wait list for the audio on Libby way before I did. So he got access to the audio, but I still had a several months wait. And the wait list at the library was still really long. So I actually cashed in a credit on Libro to get a copy of the audiobook. And then we were at Montana Book Company over the weekend because we went to Helena to see my in-laws and celebrate our anniversary. Thank you, by the way, for all of the anniversary wishes. And while we were in the store, I guess we both just hadn't realized that this is a paperback. So when we saw it in the store, we figured, let's get a copy because I'm about to start it. You just finished it and loved it. So spoiler for our book haul for July, the paperback of Just for the Summer is here, but I'm listening to it on audio. And I'm 40% of the way in. And actually, I'm really enjoying it. I see all the reasons that Joel has loved it as much. So one thing that is interesting, it's funny when you kind of stumble into those situations where there are kind of parallels between the books that you're reading. So Hombrecito, very difficult and sort of toxic relationships with family members and with people outside of the family. And as someone who had a difficult childhood and continues to have difficult relationships with both parents, you know, there are aspects of this that felt a little bit triggering, or at least resonant with me. And that kind of carries into Just for the Summer, because in this book, the female protagonist, whose name is Emma, had been a foster kid, but she still has a relationship with her mother. Her mother was just really unreliable. And as someone who is a former foster father, our foster son has grown up and out in the world on his own now. That is really interesting as well and kind of like hits hard, but she really struggles with her relationship with her mother because, and God, shades of Shuggy Bane again, despite all of the bad things that her mother did, she still loves her. And she kind of thinks that she's resolved all of these issues, but she hasn't. And that kind of hits home with me as well because, I thought I had resolved a lot of the issues that I had with my parents. And then I have just kind of assumed that a lot of the stress and anxiety I've had in recent years has been related to the news, which would totally explain it. However, I think I'm also starting to accept that I still carry a lot of anxiety from my childhood. I kind of fight off depression that comes from my childhood. And this book is about someone, or at least one of the characters, dealing with a lot of those things. So it feels kind of resonant and powerful to me as well. It's also just a really cute romance. Justin is adorable, the male protagonist of the book. So the premise of the book, the sort of hook for it, is that Justin writes one of those AITA, I hope you know what that stands for, because I'm not going to explain it, posts on Reddit to ask if he's the jerk in this scenario that has happened with his friend, where Justin has been made fun of by his friends because there's this thing, they call him the good luck charm. Whenever he dates a girl, as soon as they break up, that girl will meet her soulmate. And that happened with his best friend. He broke up with a girl and then she met his best friend and they kind of fell in love. So there's a twist on that makes him write this Am I the Jerk post on Reddit that then goes viral, not because people are answering the question, but because of the idea that he's a good luck charm. Well, the same thing has been happening to Emma. She has been dating people, and as soon as they break up, they find their soulmate, their happily ever after, and end up getting married. So they come up with the idea that if they date each other, theoretically, once they break up, they will meet their one true love. But of course, as soon as they start having conversations, there's chemistry and all that stuff. And I'm sure it's not going to be easy because this is not necessarily a short book. It's almost 400 pages. And yeah, so it's just an adorable story. I love the chemistry and the dynamic between these two characters. I love that they are both struggling with their relationship with their parents. Again, he is also struggling with his relationship with his mother. There's also a complicated story there. And, it's funny, both equations of their dynamics with their own parents remind me of dynamics I have with both of my parents and continue to struggle with as an adult. But, I am really enjoying this book and I can't wait to finish it. Hopefully now that I am done, I don't know if this thing is going to keep happening where I struggle to balance two books at one time. Usually I do not have a problem reading a physical book and an audiobook at the same time. But for the last 2 weeks, I have. I think that is a stress thing, but oh well. So I'm really looking forward to finishing this book, and hopefully I will be talking to you more about it next week when I will be done with it. So last night, before going to bed, I thought, I'm pretty sure this is going to be my next book. Let me just start it and sort of confirm that this is going to be my next book. It's Sandwich by Catherine Newman. Well, so I picked this up before bed, fully expecting that I would just read a couple of pages, and then it's like I blinked and I was 52 pages into the book. So yes, I'm gonna read this next. I think the fact that I jumped so far into it, and this is not that long of a book, it's not far over 200 pages. It is 226 pages. So should be really easy to read. I'll probably be done with this by the weekend. Hopefully I'll just be able to balance with Just for the Summer, because I have also noticed outside of the last 2 weeks, my audio listening slows down a lot over the weekend. So we'll see if that trend continues. But I fully expect to be done with this by the end of the weekend. And so this was another one that I will be talking about a lot more in my next Friday Reads. So the premise is that you have this woman who's named Rocky. She and her family have summered on Cape Cod every summer going way back. Her daughter wasn't even born, but her son was a toddler. It sounds like the first times that they started going. I can't remember if they went there before there were kids involved. But so they go there every summer for a week. Now the kids are both in their 20s. The daughter is 20. She's a junior in college. The son has a job and a girlfriend. And time has obviously passed. Things are very different. So Rocky is menopausal. She's getting ready to enter the next sort of official phase of her life. And of course, she doesn't quite feel ready for that. So it's about her going about this week. Every chapter is one day. So it starts with Saturday, their first day on... Actually, the prologue starts with them driving to Cape Cod, and then you have Saturday, then you have Sunday. I have read through Monday. And I will say, if you are thinking, I don't know that I want to read a book about privileged white people on Cape Cod, because, it's not super relatable to be able to go to Cape Cod every summer. I've never even been to Cape Cod, let alone every summer. There is a bit of that sort of infuriating quality about Rocky. She's a bit oblivious. She can be a little bit annoying. All the characters can kind of, but I think her children do a good job puncturing that. Her daughter in particular is named Willa. And when Rocky goes a little too far in one, like Willa will kind of be like, check your privilege, Mom. We got to stop. And it's interesting though, because I find it compulsively readable. I'm enjoying it, but I don't know where I'm going to fall on the question of, am I going to like this? Do I like these characters? We're going to have to wait and see. More is going to have to develop. I certainly find it enjoyable to read about them and everything that happens. And, Ann Patchett is a fan of the book. She actually is the person who introduced me to this book. She talked about it in the Laydown Diaries on Parnassus's Instagram account. And then I just started hearing about this book in a lot of other places, and I was really curious to read it, and here it is. So the blurb on the cover from Ann Patchett is, "Sandwich is joy in book form. I laughed continuously, except for the parts that made me cry. Catherine Newman does a miraculous job reminding us of all the wonder there is to be found in life." And I will say, you have these characters where you're not, in 50 pages, you're not quite sure, do I like these people or not? But you actually enjoy them. And within the first 10 pages of the book, you know exactly who they all are, how the dynamics work. And that is pretty remarkable. And it makes me interested in reading more of Catherine Newman's work, because within 10 pages to feel like you completely, fundamentally understand the universe and how the characters move around in it is pretty incredible. So that is what I'm reading in print. Hopefully I will be done with both of these books by next Friday, and we will be talking about them. I am pretty sure that I know that We Burn Daylight by Brett Anthony Johnston is going to be my next print book. This will be published at the end of July, and I have this advanced reader's copy of it. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be my next book, but I am a mood reader, so I need to kind of see where I'm at once I finish Sandwich, but then I think I'm going to pivot to this. I have not really decided what my next audiobook is going to be. I have so much left of Just for the Summer that I feel like I need to wait and see. Right now, I'm thinking it's either going to be Long Island Compromise by Taffy Brodesser Ackner or the new Kevin Barry book, which I think is called The Heart in Winter. I'm thinking it will be one of them, but I need to wait and see where I'm at and what kind of a mood I'm in when I finish Just for the Summer. So that is everything I have been reading and doing this week. So let me know what you've been reading and watching, loving, all of that stuff in the comment section down below. And if you have thoughts about any of these books, please let me know that as well. As always, I really appreciate your time. I'm going to turn the fan back on. And until next time, happy reading.